All right. Today we're going to be talking about all of the planets in the third house in astrology, giving you the full meaning explained. First, we're going to be talking about physical manifestations, how each planet affects the physical area of your life in the third house. Then we go to the psychology, and then we talk about the light and shadow manifestations as we talk about each one of these two. All right. So, as we talked about in the last video, to give you a brief overview, since we did the first two houses already, and now we're on the third in this series, we have all of these planets. They each represent different archetypal aspects of the collective unconscious, of your psyche, of your life. These are not all of them. These are just, a brief general overview. And when I put a planet in each, or when I put a planet in the third house, when I'm describing the significations and how it's altering it, how it's affecting the third house, the same can be said to a lesser degree to the sign that each of these planets rules. So, Sun for Leo, Moon for Cancer, Mars, Scorpio, Aries, you can kind of think about that as well. If the third house, if your third house or the person you're analyzing has, Leo, or holding the third cusp is Leo, they'll have similar significations. But the planets are the conscious agents. They are the subpersonalities, the parts of your consciousness that are actually taking action and have more awareness in it, where the signs are more unconscious. So meaning that the way that a planet is going to light up that third house is going to be far stronger, more conspicuous, more obvious, more noticeable than just the sign, which will be more of like a flavoring, a coloring, but it's more lights in the background. It's more thematic. Okay, but you're taking a conscious actor, agent, and putting it in the third house. It's going to be very obvious, far more obvious than if just the sign is coloring that house. And so that is brief intro. Let's get into it. So we take King, the father, the leader, the masculine energy, part of your consciousness, the most masculine Graha planet, Sun, and we put it in the third house. So how does that manifest? Well, we're going to be doing for physical manifestations, communication, siblings, teammates, kind of the same thing, and your skills that you develop. Three major significations of the physical manifestations of the third house. And so how does that affect each area? Well, when it comes to communication style, the sun is the seat of your confidence. It's the seat of your core identity. It's the most consistent part of your being, and also the part that is firm and stable and honorable and dependable. And so the way that you communicate will be an expression of the most unending and unbending part of your being when healthy. You may communicate in a kingly way or have a leadership communication style, or you like to communicate in solar ways or in solar environments, like when you're a leader or when you're in government or in positions of authority or with the father. These are things that the sun represents. And so you're taking those things and putting it in the third house. When it comes to siblings, you could have some powerful siblings or powerful teammates that take the lead, that take charge, that are consistent, that are reliable, that are dependable. These are the light manifestations. When it comes to your skills and talents, things that are part of your destiny, because the sun is also the planet of your destiny. It is the core archetypal manifestation of your being in this incarnation. And so it has a lot to say of what your destiny is when it comes to the sign it's in, the house it's in, conjunctions and aspects. So when the sun's there, the skills that you develop are going to be important when healthy to manifest your destiny. Now, when we get into the shadow manifestations, we go at the opposite end, we go to the extremes. So the way that can occur is if you have teammates or siblings that are overly egotistical, overly controlling, trying to take the lead and battling you because they want to be in charge. Or they're unreliable, undependable, and you have to do everything yourself. You don't get along with your siblings because they're not reliable. Teammates, they drop the ball. So you got to always be on your P's and Q's. You always got to be on top of it. You can't rely on your teammates. You can't rely on your siblings if the sun is afflicted. Communication style can be incongruent with not how you feel, that's more the moon, will be incongruent with how you see yourself, your core identity. You might not be able to speak with confidence, with certainty. You might be inconsistent with the way that you communicate. not knowing exactly what the best way is depending on that situation. And when it comes to skills and developments, you're inconsistent. You're not firm. You're not developing your skills you're not developing the skills in a way that will lead to fulfilling your destiny. Okay? Or it goes the opposite end and you're overly focused on your skills. You're too rigid. You only do things, only pursue interests if it serves your destiny, if it serves your path, your dharma, and you're not willing to let go and have a little bit of fun. You sacrifice the interesting, more dynamic, more, you know, informative aspects of life, even the more trivial aspects of life that make life more worth living because you're always focused on your destiny. Now, this isn't the worst thing in the world to have, but it is pathological and it can make life more dull, more restrictive, and can put you in a box that can be very uncomfortable if you're always in that box. You're always manifesting that identity and not letting loose a little bit. Okay. Or, like I said, the opposite is just totally inconsistent, not even knowing where you're going and not even knowing what skills you need to develop to move forward and to fulfill that destiny. Psychologically, the third house is the intellect. It is also the social abilities, as we talked about in previous videos when we went through all the houses and went through all the significations for psychological aspects and physical manifestations. And the intellect and the social ability. So the intellect is serving your destiny. The sun. The intellect is coming from a core place. It is serving your core identity, who you are, how you see yourself. And so a person can be very good at analyzing themselves or seeing what tweaks they need to make to move forward on their path, on their destiny. Or it can do the opposite. And the shadow manifestation, if the sun is afflicted, can lead to somebody who doesn't know who they are and they're constantly analyzing themselves and they think that they can figure themselves out if they just think about it hard enough or they analyze themselves hard enough and keep thinking and communicating and talking to other people and exchanging ideas, and eventually they'll find who they are at their very core. And that is just not how it works. It is a knowing, it is a state of being, it is a stillness, it is an understanding, it is a stepping into your individual power and being solid and firm within that core identity and doing what you say you're going to do and following through. That's how you develop confidence. It's not through the intellectual analytical mind. Intellectual analytical mind simply serves your destiny, serves your core identity, serves the queen and the king, but is not the ruler and is not how you will get there. When it comes to social ability, is somebody who can be confident in social situations, can take charge, can be a leader amongst their teammates and siblings. And like I said, in social situations, that's if it's light, if it's strong sun, that's got aspects from friends. But if it's afflicted, well, then somebody who's more insecure in communicating, insecure in maneuvering the social situations that they find themselves in, not able to feel confident to achieve their little desires, because third house is, again, your short-term desires. And it's the intellect you use and your social abilities able to work with others and maneuver strategically other people to achieve those short-term goals, which eventually gets you to your long-term goals, the 11th house. But an afflicted sun makes that difficult. You're not really confident in that ability, or you're not consistent enough in it, where you're hot and cold, or you're overly rigid. You're doing the same strategies. You're unbending. You're not willing to seamlessly, naturally adapt to the social situation that will change, because our social identities are very different from our core identity. And if those things are too tightly melded together, and the social mask that you wear in every situation is your core identity at all times, it might not best serve you. I mean, you're being real, you're being honest and being transparent, which is obviously a good thing in certain situations, but sometimes you kind of gotta, play the game. Third house is games. And so somebody with a sun that's afflicted might have a difficult time playing the social game to get the things that one wants. Okay? When we put the moon there, how does the moon affect your communication style? Well, somebody who has a natural ability to speak from their emotional center or to tap into other people's emotions. Somebody who has an emotional bond with their siblings and teammates, able to operate effectively because of that emotional connection. It's just deeper than just kind of surface, trivial, or small talk. right? But there's like there's a bond, like, there's a caring energy there. Again, with the moon, wherever that moon is, the sun, wherever the sun is, it's the destiny. Wherever the moon is, that's like your comfort zone. It's what you call home, where you feel safe. Developing your skills, you feel comfortable, or you develop skills that allow you to manage your emotions, regulate your emotions. You feel comfortable pursuing your interests, gaining new information, developing your skills, communicating too. Being in social situations. Third house moon can be a social butterfly for sure, and feel very natural and magnetic in that way, because the moon is the feminine graha, the most feminine, the queen, the mother, the child, the feminine aspect of one's being, one's psyche, one's life is magnetic. It attracts. So moon in third house can be very good. Okay. Sun can be a little bit extra firm, can be rough around the edges when you have malefics there, but the moon can be very soft and gentle, be very likable in social situations. Teammates, siblings have more of a smoother interaction, unless it's afflicted. Then you have emotional tensions, emotional turmoil, emotional outbursts between you and your siblings, you and your teammates. Communication style is overly run by your emotions. You wear your heart on your sleeve, and when you speak, it's too much filled with your own subjective experience, or you're not able to listen to other people as well and take in information because it's being overly filtered by your own individual subjective experience. The subjective filter is too strong. We all have one, but some are thinner than others, and some are able to properly regulate what information comes in that is useful and what is not useful. And that depends on the moon. So an afflicted moon can have a very distorted perception of reality, of one's social situations. Again, if it's in the third house. And when developing their skills, somebody who might only develop their skills or only pursue interests when they feel like it, or can't decide on anything because they're pursuing these skills, these developments through their emotional center, but they haven't really tapped into how they truly feel. They don't know how they truly feel. They're not able to develop the skills to regulate their emotions, to understand themselves, and then using their intellect to understand their emotional self, or they don't feel safe developing their skills for whatever reason. Again, if there's an afflicted moon, say it's with Saturn or Rahu or Ketu, North Node, South Node, same thing as Rahu, Ketu, for those Americans who are watching and don't know Vedic astrology. Psychologically speaking, the third house is your intellect. As I said before, it's the intellect, and it is your social ability. So again, like I said, can be a social butterfly, the moon, but the intellect is, like I said, colored with your emotions. I might have already said this. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. All right, so then we do Mars. Mars is the warrior, the general, the pioneer, the will. And I have this placement, so I have personal experience with it. So when it comes to siblings, Mars can bring contention. It can bring challenges. It can bring willful energies between you, your teammates, and siblings. It can make a powerful personality of the individual, of the native who has Mars in the third. And so it can be more difficult to communicate or to work with others, because Mars is a very individualized planet who wants things his way, wants to do things his way. And so Mars will sometimes be impatient and just say, just give me it, I'll do it myself. So you can have that manifestation, which can be good or bad, depending on the situation. I mean, obviously the bad version of that is when somebody has too much of a cutting communication style, or is too abrasive, too impulsive in the way they communicate, or when they work with siblings or teammates, they're not willing to be patient, not willing to harmonize with the group. You also have the skills, can be have a natural ability to develop one's skills, use the will, be very focused on what they want. The shadow side, though, is that sometimes a person can be very initiative in the beginning, start things with a lot of fire, a lot of passion, Mars, but then teeter off when that fire kind of burns out. Sun is that consistent initiative action where it's just, this is who I am. So I'm doing these skills because it's just part of who I am. I'm a coder, so I learn skills to code. I'm a musician, so I learn how to play guitar. That's just who I am. It's my core. One of my best friends has Mars in the third house as well. Part of the reason why I think we get along. We actually don't fight, which is very interesting. And he can be like me, where he starts something interesting and then kind of teeters off. But he also has a lot of talents, and I like to think I also have a lot of talents. So it can give a lot of passion, give a lot of fire, especially if Mars is in a good situation with some good planets. or in good dignity with good aspects, it can make somebody who has a lot of skills because they're willing to put in the work, the effort, which is really important. So Mars can do well in the third. Don't think it's necessarily a bad situation, and it can positively affect the third house, and will get better over time because the third house is an upachaya. So naturally, all the things that I talk about will become better and better as you age, particularly with the third house. But being mindful of that passion, that fire that can burn bright and then burn out. And that's where the shadow manifests, right? You have that contention, you have those ego battles, you have too much of an individual spirit when it comes to working with others or to socializing, okay? And skills, communication style, siblings, and then we go to psychology. The light manifestation is somebody who has a very directed, willful intellect, can use their intellect to solve problems, to fix things, okay? Mars is the planet of fixing things, fighting, overcoming things, being the warrior. You have an intellectual warrior, intellectual pioneer, able to direct their will, their mental energy towards the things that they desire in the short term, which is the third house. When it comes to social abilities, able to put in the effort, do the work, solve problems for other people, or work with other people to get the job done. I'm going to work with this person because this is the goal that we have, and I'm going to work with them to get the job done. I can relate to that a lot. The shadow side is, like I said before, is somebody who might be harsh, be too rough around the edges in their social situations, might offend people, might say things in an impulsive, abrasive way that cuts people verbally, emotionally, internally. The intellect can be overly logical, overly sharp, all over the place, misdirected, undisciplined if you have an afflicted Mars. Going to the extremes. Too sharp, and then also can be also dull, right? Somebody who has a dullness, doesn't have that fire, doesn't have that ability to push forward and develop their skills, develop their communication abilities, work with others, use their intellect for the things that are in their life that are causing them problems. They just don't have that energy. And that can be a real problem because Mars does not have the most digbala in the third house, directional strength. And so somebody who overly focuses on the trivial little things and doesn't actually focus their will, their energy, their vitality towards the bigger problems that need to be solved, which is something that Mars is all about. Because, like I said before, not only is Mars the warrior, the general, Mars is the policeman, the firefighter who goes into action when things are going crazy for a short amount of time, short bursts, and then lots of rest, which is when when Mars does his best. Then we have Mercury. We have Mercury here. This is actually a pretty good placement. Can support because you have the scientist, the observer, the detective, the intellect in the house of observation, intellect, skill, development, right? Can be a very skilled individual with Mercury in the third. So physically, how does that manifest? Well, somebody who has a very, very bright mind that likes to try different things and develop their skills and has many different interests, can gather lots of information, learning new things. Communication style, natural communicators, can be very coherent and eloquent in their speech, can develop their ability to communicate, develop their skills to communicate more effectively, can be very friendly and playful and light and fun with their teammates and their siblings, can have a positive relationship in a very free, lighthearted way, not too serious, less serious than Mars, which is more intense. Right? Or even Saturn, which can be more restrictive, or even the Sun, which can be more rigid and fatherly and authoritative relationship with the siblings. But Mercury, it's light, fun, playful, making jokes, having fun, playing games in the third house, which is playing games, lighthearted, fun, adventure, short bursts of adventure. Ninth house, more long-term adventure, longer adventures. When it comes to the shadow manifestations is undisciplined, focusing too much on trivial interests, spreading oneself too thin, jack of all trades, master of none type energy. Can be somebody who talks too much and doesn't listen enough, or feels insecure communicating because Mercury's afflicted, it's being restricted in some way or has a negative aspect. Then somebody is not confident in their intellect, not confident in their ability to communicate. We did siblings, communications, siblings, and skills. Yeah. So can have too much of a surface level approach with siblings to only play, not actually getting things done because there's too much flitting around, not taking the goal, the objective seriously enough. Can be an afflicted Mercury. So again, there's always that light and dark manifestations, and it's different for everyone. And there are many different things you can see in the chart to see if it's going to manifest in a light or shadow way. More, but this is all probabilistic because we always have that 25% of free will. Psychologically speaking, you have the planet of the intellect, the scientist, in the house of the intellect and social ability. So naturally, this can have a very bright mind, very intelligent individual, interested in lots of things, very analytical, able to analyze things very well, able to analyze the self and observe other people, especially in social situations, has a high social ability because they're able to strategically maneuver different people and adapt to that environment. Or shadow side is somebody who's overly a shapeshifter, too much of a shapeshifter, too strategic, too detached, too surface and playful with people, and not really actually getting to the meat. Okay? The intellect is too intellecty, right? Not enough substance, too much surface, too much material, not enough depth. Can be an afflicted Mercury in the third house. So you're thinking about thinking, but you're not really thinking about anything important. Can be the shadow manifestation. It's not the most painful thing, but can waste a lot of time. An afflicted Mercury can waste a lot of time. Afflicted Mars, Saturn, Moon can be very painful, even Venus, but Mercury, it can make things more difficult, and make things meaningless and pointless, where it's like, what was the point of that? Cool, you learned all those facts, but for what? What are you using it for? Does it have a point? So for Venus can do well here, though again, too, like I said before, with all planets in the third, Upachaya, you're going to be developing them over time. Talked about that in other videos when we talked about the psychology of the houses. So when it comes to siblings, can have a harmonious relationship with siblings, can have beautiful teammates and siblings as well, or siblings that focus on relationships, equal trade, or natural beauty or sustainability. Communication style can be elegant, can be very soft and agreeable and approachable and desirable to other people. And it's a feminine planet. Venus is the second most feminine planet. So again, it can be magnetic and draw people in. And when it comes to one's skills, involving things that are beautifying, can be artistic, creative outlets, fine arts can be something that manifests when you have Venus in the third house. That same friend who has Mars in the third house has Venus there. So he's a musician, he's a creative, he's a video editor, he has lots of different skills, and making pretty music, singing pretty songs, writing about relationships and dynamics in that such, or dynamics in that way. You get Venus in the third, okay? That's the more positive manifestation. The more negative is somebody who may forego conflict, be a people pleaser. When working with teammates, might take a backseat, might not be willing to do the hard work, or will avoid getting the job done if it maintains harmony. So if things aren't getting done the way that they're supposed to be getting done, they won't say anything because they want to be agreeable. They're too docile, too soft. Communication style, again, can be overly agreeable, can be restricted in the sense that one is only saying what other people want to hear and not saying the truth. Similar things can be occurring with the moon, of only focusing on making people feel good in a communication style, or only wanting to elicit positive emotions and not able to say the things that might develop them or help them in a real tangible way. So you're kind of like enabling, can be somebody who enables others. And when it comes to skills, overly focused on developing skills of beauty, becomes pathological, things that are maybe less practical, less useful in an everyday sense, or can also have somebody who doesn't only thinks about skills that other people will like. So it's overly socially conscious, meaning, Sun will develop skills that are like, this is who I am, so I'm going to do it, right? Moon, this makes me feel good. Mars, this is going to solve a problem, so I'm going to develop these skills. This is something there's an obstacle in my way, and I need to get the skills to overcome that obstacle. I can relate to that, right? Mercury, this is interesting. This is very interesting, and I just enjoy this learning the new skills. I enjoy learning new things and developing new skills. So I'm going to learn this new skill. But Venus can be, something beautiful, something that will help other people, something that will be useful and valuable to other people, so I can get something in return of value. But then that can become pathological, where it's like, I'm only going to learn this skill, I'm only going to pursue this interest or hobby if other people agree, or if other people will validate it. Overly socially minded. Carrying that over to the intellect, to social ability. Somebody has a natural ability to be very socially graceful, very socially agreeable, able to maneuver and tap in intuitively to what people want to hear at the right time, similar to the moon. But Venus is even more elegant and more about having an equal relationship, where the moon's looking more to get that validation and just kind of soak up the things that it feels like it emotionally needs. Or Venus is more looking in the external of like, I'm going to socially not swoon, but manipulate is a harsh word, so I wouldn't say manipulate, but smooge. I think that's right. I think that's a word. But kind of like butter them up. Venus is willing to butter them up to get the things that it values, or the things that it desires. Because Venus is more about pleasure, sensorial experiences. Moon's more about what you need, that emotional need. But Venus is more like, oh, okay, like I want this, or this would be pleasurable, or this would be sustainable and healthy for me. So let me schmooze this guy. Let me butter him up. Intellect is more intuitive, focused on making the proper choices, analyzing things to make the right choice, to come to a proper decision, because Venus is all about choice, using the intellect in relationships and relationship dynamics, making sure everyone is getting an equal trade and equal outcome, so everyone leaves happy. Venus is all about that diplomacy. The opposite end, the pathological, more shadow side, is somebody who is emotionally manipulative, is buttering people up to get what they want, and not willing to give what the other person wants in return, or being fake, being overly surface or vain, right? And using one's intellect and using one's sociability for vain, let's say, pleasure-seeking ends. Can be very hedonistic. Venus in the third, if it's not properly regulated and there's not enough consciousness and awareness there. Then we go to Jupiter, which is a placement that I have with Mars. Thankfully, it soothes out my Mars, so I'm not the most unbearable person to talk to in conversation. So Jupiter here, wherever Jupiter goes, I said in the last two videos, it expands, it brings fortune, it brings wisdom, it brings luck. Here it can bring a lot of excess. So this can actually be a difficult placement, believe it or not. I talked about this when I was talking about I believe it was the houses explained, just the general descriptions. But from a physical standpoint, if it's expanding things, if it's leading to abundance, leading to wisdom, what is that doing? Well, communication, leading to a lot of communication experiences, or communicating one's wisdom, or teaching, or providing knowledge to other people. Siblings can create, wise siblings, or a lot of siblings, a lot of teammates, a lot of interactions where you're working on teams, or you're working towards a common goal with other people. Third house. When it comes to skills, lots of interests, lots of things, information you're acquiring from different sources. Oh my God, I do that all the time. I fall down rabbit holes every other day. It is crazy. It's how I got here, honestly. So for better or for worse, right? Good and the bad. But that can become pathological, where, again, similar to Mercury, can be a jack of all trades, master of none. That's the shadow manifestation. Focusing too much on trivial things without a purpose, lacking that purpose and meaning in the things that all the information you're getting. It's just too much information. Becoming overly arrogant or preachy when it comes to working with teammates or siblings, or in your communication style, overly focusing on the bigger picture, overly focusing on the purpose, and not focusing on the details, on the bottom line, which is more Mercury, on the little things that will get you to the goal. Overly goal focused and being like, okay, well, that's cool that you have that goal, you have that vision, and you're able to communicate it, but how are you going to get there? Or you have a goal, you have a vision, but you don't know how to communicate it. Jupiter in the third. afflicted, not doing well. You feel this desire, this purpose, but you don't know how to manifest it. You don't know what skills you need to do to get there, and you don't know how to communicate to other people, to work with other people to help, so they can help you get there, or to help other people get there, you know? So it can be difficult. It can make a life full of trivial pursuits that lacks a lot of meaning and purpose and transcendent experiences. Psychologically speaking, a big picture intellect that looks at the spiritual side of things, the transcendent side of things, likes to focus on, Jupiter-like things like money, wisdom, gurus, right? You're got the guru, priest, philosopher, guide in the third house. I think I'm 3 for 3 for forgetting to talk about the freaking archetypes for Jupiter before I start rambling off, but do what you got to do. But you got guru, priest, philosopher, guide in the third. Intellect is going to be interested in philosophy, in guiding others, guiding oneself, in therapy, in religion. These are not saying you're going to be interested in all those things inherently, but one of those things will usually take front and center, right? For me, it was actually philosophy. It was actually philosophy, then spirituality. Now it's kind of going to religion because I'm interested in these different things. Or it could be, only one, all of them or none. Sometimes, if it's afflicted, right? The shadow manifestation is somebody who doesn't use their intellect for something more transcendent. Focuses too much on just developing skills. Like I said before, jack of all trade, master of none kind of energy. Okay? Can't see the bigger picture. Because again, it's at the extremes when it's afflicted. The purpose is gone. And so it's just surface. It's just information with no point, no rhyme, no reason. And sociability can give a large social circle, can have a very fortunate social life in many different ways, but that can lead to arrogance. You can take it for granted. Also, there's such thing as having too many friends or having too many teammates. I don't want to say too many siblings, but you kind of get the point of just too many cooks in the kitchen or too many people involved in moving towards a certain goal. Can have an overabundance. That is, an overindulgence too. Overindulgence in short-term pleasures as well for Jupiter. Short-term spikes of dopamine, third house. Long-term goals, 11th. Short-term, I want this within the next couple days, can create an overindulgence in those things and those trivial pleasures, trivial desires, which can get you to the long-term goal and are necessary, but they're not everything. Got to be mindful of that. And then we have the servant, Saturn, which does better here than you would think, because Upachaya malefics do well. The cruel grahas, the cruel planets, do well in 3rd, 6, 10, and 11 because they're Upachayas. They get better, and you can use your will. So we have Saturn here affecting your communication style. So somebody can have a more reserved, colder, measured, disciplined form of communication, using their words efficiently, usually not going to be rambling off like somebody with, say, Jupiter, who has lots of words, lots of communication, or even Mercury. And when it comes to siblings, can restrict the amount of siblings, so less siblings, less teammates as well. Only child is more likely, or can have a very disciplined, very traditional relationship, meaning we're going to do this, we're going to communicate in this way, and it can be kind of rigid at times. When it comes to the skills that are focused on survival, right? It's a servant, elderly, authority, shadow, but skills that are focused on long-term sustainability, long-term service, being of service. Saturn represents servants. 3rd house is also representative of one's servants. So, skills to be of service, to do the day-to-day work that you need to do to get through whatever is stopping you from surviving properly, or whatever is making your life more difficult. The shadow side, or the more difficult side, is fear around working with teammates, and inability, social inhibition, not able to communicate properly, feeling emotion, or not emotionally, but blocked in your communication. And then when it comes to skills, not feeling able, feeling slow, not feeling able to develop one skill, or taking forever to develop one skill, but you need multiple skills to get the job done, right? Usually you're going to need more than one skill to get through this life. And so I'm not saying obviously you'd only learn one skill your entire life, but it can be, there's more of a learning curve. Like Mercury, Jupiter can learn things more quickly, even Mars and the moon more naturally. Saturn is going to take some time. It's going to take discipline. Wherever Saturn is, delays, discipline, austerity, restriction, trauma and fear, healing needs to be done wherever Saturn is. We all got Saturn somewhere. So no reason to feel bad if you got Saturn in the third, because Saturn would be doing that thing no matter where he is or where they are, because Saturn's more of a neuter planet, gender fluid, if you will. But that is the manifestations for psychology, for the physical. Going to the psychological manifestations, intellect can have a slower, more methodical intellect, meaning it might take longer to retain or gather information, but once it's there, it's there. Where Mercury can have a lot of different information coming in and retain a lot of different things, but also lose a lot of things. Same with Mars, can make it more impulsive, where you're gathering a lot of information, but you're not really able to retain it. Saturn is going to slow things down, but you're going to be able to absorb it because it's going to be sinking deeper. Learning less things, but they're going to sink deeper. When it comes to the sociability, can be more socially reserved, but conscious of how one is interacting and not overdoing it, not doing too much. People can actually think of Saturn people with Saturn in the third. One of my good friends has Saturn in the third, and they are perceived as cool. They're kind of aloof socially, right? They don't interact with too many people, but people are kind of drawn to them because they kind of have this cool, kind of detached aura to them that some people really like, right? And so some people will always just be magnetized to that kind of energy, that kind of, fly on the wall, wallflower, detached type of energy. Kind of depends on Saturn's dignity, if that's healthy or that's pathological. The pathological is just, insecurity, fear, not able to approach people even if they wanted to. When Saturn's in good dignity or is healthy, supported, like the light manifestation, it's because they don't feel the need to always socialize or to run around and fulfill every single impulsive desire. They have discipline, they have austerity, they enjoy the simple things in life, they can take their time, they can be patient. The intellect is patient. Focus is achievable with healthy Saturn. Unhealthy, the shadow manifestation, somebody who either learns things very slowly, and it's just because they just absorb things slowly and they're not even retaining it as much as you would even think by how slowly they're learning it, or they're not able to be patient and they're jumping around, right? They're not able to properly maneuver the different skills they need to develop. They're not able to properly focus their intellect because they're just moving through life lazy, lackadaisical, like Eeyore. Saturn in its more negative manifestation, shadow manifestation, will operate a lot like Eeyore. Okay? Now, finally, I think maybe I already talked about the social ability can be more restricted, more insecure if it's, feel like an outcast, can also happen if you have Saturn in the third house. Okay? So that was the shadow manifestation. Pretty sure I got through everything. I appreciate your time. If you resonated with anything, please let me know down below. Always love responding to the comments and answering questions when I can. And subscribe, because in the next video, we're going to be doing the fourth house. And we did the first, the second, now we did the third. We're doing all the houses, all the planets and all the houses, it's a full series. And we talked about all the houses beforehand. So subscribe to continue on this journey with me as you learn for free all the different interesting, fun, foundational aspects of astrology.